Thank you.
Forgetting something the whole class.
Everybody wants water. It's okay.
It's all right. Oh, that doesn't work.
You ready?
We're ready.
Okay, that's all right. Well, many say that rain promotes healing, cleansing, and growth. So we're blessed to have raindrops today. So grateful for that. But it also looks like the sun is going to make its way out. So, well, good morning. I have the privilege of having worked with Angie as chaplain at hospice with National Church Residences. And so I'm so grateful to be able to be of service to the family today. And it's an honor. Thank you for that. Friends and family, I welcome you into this gathering, which is made sacred in the spirit of love and friendship that you bring today. And on Mike's behalf, on behalf of Mike's family, I would like to say thank you very much to all of you who have come to be here with them today. We're here to say farewell and honor the life and the memory of Mike Siegman. We honor Mike for his inspiration and his devotion to his family. We're here to say farewell. You comes with your own unique memories of Mike, and for he was not the same person to any two people, but he never knew a stranger for sure. And you each bring a very special memory of a man who touched your lives with love and friendship, and in a variety of different ways. And in this time of grieving, we know that God's word can bring comfort. And so I'd like to read the 23rd Psalm to you. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He has me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He revives my soul. He guides me on paths of righteousness for his glory. Though I walk through the valley of the I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they do comfort me. You set a table in sight of my enemies, and you anoint my head with rich oil, and my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall abide in the house of the Lord forever. At this time, I'd like to read the obituary. After a short fight with cancer, Mike returned to his beloved first wife, Pam, in heaven, April 18th, 2024. Mike was born on December 21st, 1955 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the first child of Ronald Siegman and Pauline Pesch Siegman. He had a wonderful life in his youth, living in a largely Jewish community, attending Hebrew school and local community schools. He remembered the love of his mother, who was at home to greet him every day from school. He was the audio-visual guy, earning the respect of staff and students alike. During this time, he began working alongside his father at a local formal attire shop, and he shared a happy childhood with his brothers Ken and Dan and sister Sari. Mike graduated from Washington High School in Milwaukee, June 1973. Mike's love of cars began early in his life, and his grandfather would take him for walks, and Mike would point out all the cars, telling his grandfather the names in turn. At age 5, he began building model cars with the same grandfather, and this turned into a lifelong passion for him. He was on a crew that raced at a local track on Saturday nights, and he worked in the automotive industry as a parts manager for a Saturn dealership and other auto parts stores. And before retirement, he drove for Chevrolet dealership and delivered parts for them. Mike met his first love, Pam, in 1981. They moved to Texas to begin their lives close to Mike's family. They were married in May of 1983, and together they added their happiness with Ryan in 1985, Brittany in 1988, and Taylor in 1990. And they all moved to Owasso, Michigan in 1993. Having gotten some land from Pam's family, says here that the house that Mike built, they built their dream home. Mostly being a stay-at-home dad, Mike cherished his children, coaching soccer games and going to every concert and recital. Weekends were to indulge in his model club hobby, going to club meets and organizing shows and contests and writing pieces for Scale Model magazine and building the models for Revel cover art. Mike was a larger-than-life person who met and became friends in a heartbeat and maintained those friendships throughout the years. He was very loyal. And in 2007, with the crumbling of the economy in Michigan, Mike and Pam chose to uproot and move, spending a year trying to check out different locations. They moved to Seattle in 2008. They had been there for a little over 2 years when, while on vacation in Hawaii, Pam was tragically lost in a scuba accident on December the 10th, 2010. And Mike was left to carve out a new life without his best friend. Now, Mike had a lust for life and adventure, and he knew deep down that life is better with company. And he met Angela. They met on a dating website, and love came to him again when she became his wife in 2012. And together, they blended their families. And when he became new dad to Amanda and Jack and Aaliyah, while step-parent was not a role that he had anticipated or planned on, he always embraced the dad that he didn't have to be. Helping as the expert for Jack's science projects and walking Amanda down the aisle for her wedding. He was often the support and listening ear when Mom was at work. Through the years, Mike has always been the architect of adventure and experiences, planning cruises and family reunions and road trips. He had no shortage of memories. A favorite trip was a trip he and Pam and the kids took to see water falling over rocks, also known as Niagara Falls. Angela and he had made many trips as well during their years together, visiting such amazing places as Mount Rushmore, Devil's Tower, Canyon Beach, San Diego, and Maui, along with several cruises, concerts, and always car shows. Mike was happiest surrounded by the people that he loved. And you could see pure joy in his face when holding or playing with his grandchildren, Parker, Carter, Peyton, Beckett, Dominic, and Emerson. We have a cutie pie right up here as well. At this time, I'd like to invite Taylor to come up and read a letter that she has prepared.
I'll try and make it through this. If you knew my dad, you might have thought he was a grumpy old man with a pretty hot temper. But if you got to love my dad, you knew he was so much more than that rough exterior and that Siegman temper. He had a wicked and sometimes embarrassing sense of humor. He loved to give bunny ears when taking pictures. He loved to laugh at his own jokes, and he had the biggest belly laugh that filled an entire room. That laugh is the soundtrack of so many of my childhood memories. He loved watching Jeopardy at night and knew almost all of the answers. He wasn't perfect, but he was the perfect dad for me. Growing up, I remember watching cartoons before he would take me to preschool. And I was calling him out at night when he was falling asleep in front of the TV. And he'd wake up and say, "Hey, I'm not sleeping, I'm watching that." He tried to act tough, but he always gave in. I remember we called him at work once when a dog wandered into the yard. And he said, "Don't feed it and don't name it." And we said, "Well, Dad, Buddy was hungry." And that big, soft heart gave in the second he saw that dog. I never doubted he would be there when I needed, always just a phone call away. He made the best chili and made sure everyone knew it, and would often say, "Oh, I'm so good at this," when taking the first bite. He was funny and kind and the best dad I could have asked for. When my daughter was born, he just held her, and I don't think he knows I saw, but there were tears running down that face as he stared at her. His love for her was palpable in that hospital room. He was excited to take her to the zoo and the science center and, of course, car shows. I apologized to her in advance for the millions of cars he was going to make her look at. As much as I hated those car shows growing up, I'd do anything for just one more with him so that he could take Emerson. As much as I selfishly want him here with me, I know he's back with my mom and finally at peace for the first time in 13 years. So the next time you watch Jeopardy or give a big belly laugh or take a good trip somewhere, give my dad just a little thought. I know I will. Dad, I love you, and I know you're finally at peace and not suffering, and I am so grateful for that. I'll miss your big hugs, your even bigger laugh, and being able to call you up for a random lunch date on a Tuesday. I know you'll watch over me and my babies, and I'll make sure they know all about Grandma and Grandpa. Give Mom a big hug for me, and you two try not to get into trouble wherever you are. I'll see you again someday, old man, but until then, I watch for you in all those little moments when I'm missing you the most.
Thank you, Taylor. And somehow I can't help think that he is just really rejoicing and loving that his sweet grandbaby is right here and smiling. Yeah. This time I'd like to invite Ken to read something that he has prepared.
So it's hard to believe we're all here together, paying tribute to my brother. So I'm Ken. I'm the second one, so Mike's my older brother. He called me on March 30th to tell me that he was just home from the hospital and the infection he was being treated for was under control. He was tired but glad to be home. And unexplainably, as we all know now, a few days later, he was back in the hospital with this dire diagnosis, and within days he was gone. We spend our lives trying to prepare for all that can happen, but losing family is something you can never really be ready for. The sequence of his death seemed unbelievable, but yet here we are. Mike's journey through life was marked by unanswering authenticity. We've heard that from others. He was never one to conform to societal expectations or compromise his values or how he fits in. Instead, he blazed his own trail. He marched to his own beat and his own drum. We all know Mike loved the band Yes and all rock and roll from the 60s and 70s. If you ask me, it's not a rock and roll song. The song that really defined his life would probably be Frank Sinatra's I Did It My Way. He did it by combining his three passions: cars, music, and family. Another theme we seem to hear a lot of. You need to understand that Mike was 3 years older than me, and before my arrival, he was the center of everyone's world. Then there was me, and before you know it, 17 months later, along came the twins, Danny and Sari, and Mike's quiet little world was blown sky high in the chaos of mom caring for 4 kids under the age of 5. Mike developed his love of cars, as you heard, long before us interlopers came along. Many wonder how long it could have been because I was 3, but true story is his first words were Mama, Dada, and Chevy. After we came along, Mike would escape with our grandfather. They'd go for walks on weekends in Madison, and Mike literally got to a point you heard and could literally, by the time he was 4, point out every car and name what it was. As I remember, we had the typical Midwestern 1960s childhood. We played with neighborhood kids by day and retreated home as soon as the streetlights came on. As a kid, Mike loved cars and comic books. He began building models at a very early age. And I remember watching his face light up with pride when he finished a detailed car. Over time, his skill progressed, and it became a lifelong passion. Mike also loved reading sci-fi comics and collected Superman action and adventure comic books, and was reading book comics when he wasn't building models. As a little brother, I quickly learned that the best way to get Mike to cooperate and be nice to me was to threaten to either tear one of his comic books or smash a model. As we got older and Mike left elementary school for junior high and high school, we probably saw less of each other, intersecting mostly at the family dinner table. And although we didn't hang out a lot, few memories stick with me. Especially, I'll never forget, Mike is the one who taught me how to drive stick shift. He sold his first car, a red 1967 Dodge Coronet, and got a brand new yellow Chevy Vega. What a bad mistake. As most of you know, and as you've heard, Siegman men are really great drivers. And so with all his patience and calmness, he taught me how to drive stick in his new Vega. It's a fond memory that I have and carry with me. Him and I just alone in that Vega, the car kind of jerking around, and him demonstrating, as Taylor called, that wonderful Siegman temper. During this time, I also remember Mike embracing his love of music. He'd sit at the kitchen table in the evenings with his transistor radio, listening to Milwaukee's best, WOKY, and it was there that he really developed his love for rock and roll. And yes, he collected vinyl, even he still has all of those records. In high school, he developed his love for experiencing live concerts, and that joy never waned. My brother Dan even talks about how his first concert was with Mike at a Yes concert, his favorite band. During this time, he perfected what became his standard dress code: cut-off jeans, a t-shirt with an iron-on hot rod or a concert band on it, and he carried that dress code throughout his life. Mike also was smart. He was actually the smartest out of the four of us. His intelligence was a blessing and a curse. Well, because he always did well at school with very little effort, he always found it boring. He tried college, but no surprise, found it boring too, and he opted instead to go to a technical college, learn computers, and back then went to work for Epson. Soon, I went away to school too, and like many families, we all got on busy with our own lives. Mike met Pam, got married, and soon had 3 kids. And though time spent with Mike was little, I knew how much he loved his family and still loved building models, music, and he expanded his wardrobe of car-related t-shirts. Though most of our time during this period was tied to family-related events, I always remember the sight of walking into the hospital the day Taylor was born prematurely and seeing Mike with his hand inside that incubator, holding his little nugget daughter in the palm. That was a moment that the compassion and love for family were clear and apparent to me. Over the years, we kept tabs on each other, primarily through Mom. We all seemed to check in with Mom, and she in turn disseminated the details to the 4 of us siblings. We always talked on holidays and birthdays, but for the most part, we led our own lives. That said, I knew we both were strong, had the strong family connection, and would be there for each other in a heartbeat if needed. As you heard, tragedy struck Mike and the family in 2010 with the loss of Pam. We briefly reconnected, but it wasn't until 2012 when Mike met and married Angela that we really started rebuilding our relationship and talking regularly. Angela always respected and honored Pam and Mike in the kids' tragic loss. But Angela, we want to acknowledge you for the love and joy that you brought to Mike. You turned on a light within him. I know he loved being with you, the numerous cruises you took, going to concerts, and you even schlepping along to model car shows with him. You were a fantastic partner. He was a better person because of your presence in his life. We all loved the time we got to spend with you and your passion for a good tequila. But more so, we all love the energy and joy that you brought to Mike. You are always family. When our dad passed away in 2013, Mike kind of took over the task of finding ways to bring the family together for events and reunions. And he was always suggesting dates and locations for us all to meet up. He is the one who made it a point to attend every family wedding and event. I'll always be grateful to Mike for his help. When Mom got sick in 2020, he was always the one to jump on a plane and come to California to assist. He helped with her care, and Angela, you too, it was even harder for you sometimes with him being away for long periods of time, but you supported that. Brian, Brittany, and Taylor, your dad loved you and was so proud of you, and he always shared your accomplishments and what you were doing in your lives. You, Carter, Beckett, Emerson brought him so much joy. And Amanda, Jack, and Aaliyah, Mike always talked about you as his kids and his family. Over the past several years, I've gotten to know my brother in a much deeper way, and I'll cherish those memories. I'm glad we talked regularly, enjoyed our time together, and this is all too soon and doesn't make a lot of sense, but I am thankful that he didn't have to endure a long illness. As we bid farewell, let us carry forward the lessons he taught us, that of living authentically, loving fiercely, and embracing those things that you're passionate about and cherish every moment, as well as the good looks of a great t-shirt with a hot rod on it. Though he may no longer walk among us, his spirit will continue to guide us, be a beacon of light in darkness, and remind us to do it our way. Thank you.
So beautiful. Thank you. This time I'd like to invite Pam Strict to come and read on behalf of Angela, Mike's wife.
So I met my husband John in the fall of 1990 and spent the next year going to car shows, toy shows, model car contests. I met a lot of car guys. And at one of the shows, he introduced me to Mike Siegman. By the end of the show, he'd become my good longtime friend, Mike. Fast forward a few years, when Mike met Angela, he told John, we have to get these two together. They are really going to hit it off. So fast forward to a few weeks ago, when Angela told me she wanted to tell people about Mike and what he meant to her, but didn't think she could make it through it. Well, that's what friends are for. So, Angela's words in my voice. It started with hi in a little bubble in an online dating site chat box. His profile talked about his lost love and best friend, an almost 30-year marriage that was full of love and adventure. I was pretty sure that he wasn't ready for the long-term commitment that I was looking for, but I wanted to meet a guy who loved his wife. Dating sites are full of men who hate their exes. Mike was different. After a week or so of chatting, we agreed to meet and go to a local festival called Salmon Days. We walked through the booths talking and sharing our stories like most people on a first date. He talked about Pam and their life together, then asked me what I was looking for. I simply said, that. As we walked and talked through the crowded street, he reached out and took my hand and said, I don't want to lose you. Like so many people I've talked to in the last month, I found we were friends from the start, and that grew to love and an amazing companionship and marriage. Mike was a music lover. When we met, he had already purchased tickets to several concerts and comedy shows. He loved the band Yes, and did his best to see them at least once a year. We would go to the concerts in the park, set up lawn chairs and a picnic dinner. He even took his mom to one of these on her visit to Washington. Country music, 70s and 80s bands. For the first several years, I saw more concerts than I had in my whole life before. Mike was a traveler. He took the reins in planning weekend getaways and trips. The first was to San Diego for the Christmas break with my kids, then Las Vegas and Super Bowl weekend with his parents. So many trips that I can't count. Our first cruise for our honeymoon, then several more, at least one every other year. The real fun was in the planning. We would sit on the couch and talk about where we wanted to go, then Google, and eventually YouTube to determine the details. Once a cruise was booked, we would look at excursions and find just the right one. Many trips involved car shows or model contests. And to make it fun for me, we would find a list of other activities to do, going to San Francisco for NNL West. Also became a day at the Winchester Mystery House and a day at Alcatraz. The trip to Atlanta for NNL Least was a trip to the Atlanta Aquarium one year and the Smoky Mountains another. Several remember the year Mike missed the contest altogether to wait at the hospital while I had gallbladder surgery. Even when he was in the hospital, he lamented that he was missing the cruise we had planned in April. Mike was a car guy. Aside from model cars that he built from the age of 5, he loved cars. He loved car shows, and many weekends would be spent walking through cars. We played a game to make it interesting. We would decide how many cars would go into our fantasy garage, somewhere between 6 and 10. We would each get half the number, and we would choose cars at the show that we would want to put in that garage, if money were no object. He watched car races on the weekends, usually down in his workroom while working on a model. He got several magazines every month. The basement is full of boxes and boxes of magazines that he swore were important for his modeling. He was especially partial to Chevrolet, and he was over the moon the day he bought his Corvette. He let me test drive it that day. But once it was home, he always found an excuse for not letting me drive it to the point it became a joke, and I would push just to see if he would relent. Mike was smart. He had a vast knowledge of the world and history, playing Jeopardy and calling out the answers to obscure questions. We would go to the trivia contests on the cruise, and we have an embarrassing amount of Royal Caribbean key rings from winning. He loved documentaries and watched the news several times a day. Many of our evening conversations revolved around the current politics. Mike was flawed. He had a temper. He would road rage to the point of my yelling at him that he was going to get shot. He had a supreme lack of self-awareness when he would be cussing and swearing. I would say, "What are you so mad about?" And he would calmly turn to me and say, "I'm not mad." He would often be in his own world, looking at his phone when we were at dinner with the kids or other social events. The amount of detail that he put into his model cars leaked over into his need to load the dishwasher a certain way and get frustrated with food spills in the microwave. He was demanding and had his idea of how something should be done, refusing to hear that there was more than one way. I found with patience that he could be persuaded. Mike loved his family. From the time I knew him, he would call his mom every Sunday. He missed those calls after she passed, but instead started calling his brothers. When we first met, there was tension between Mike and his siblings, but soon we started having get-togethers, weekends with family, and Mike was the planner. He would be so happy that everyone is here today. I'm sure he's just sorry to be missing out. He had no idea when he met me how challenging my kids could be, but he became my partner and co-parent along with the kids' dad and stepmom. Jack forged a bond with Mike. The two of them were often collaborating over one thing or other. We had a great trip, the three of us, to Maui. In addition to being a great step-parent, Mike was the dad to his own kids, although during our time together, they were all grown adults. We made trips to see Ryan in Montana and Brittany in Florida, moving to Columbus in 2019 to live close to Taylor. He was there to support her through the end of her first marriage and her marriage to Saul. He was so happy to hear about Brittany's travel adventures and perhaps a little jealous. He enjoyed hearing about Ryan's business success and was so proud of the man he has become. And he loved being close to Taylor, watching her graduate as an NP and follow her mom's footsteps, and then watching her be so happy with Solomon, becoming a mom herself. Mike was my rock, my hero, my companion, my best friend. He made sure the bills were paid and did the grocery shopping and most of the cooking so I could be free to work and give the extra time to the job I loved. We were sitting in his hospital room when he reached out and took my hand and said, "I'm not ready to lose you. We should have had more time. And maybe someday we'll see each other again. In the meantime, I am so grateful for every memory, every adventure, and so grateful he said hi."
This time we're going to play the Jewish prayer, Mi Shabarak, forgive me for mispronouncing, for a moment of prayer and quiet reflection as they begin. It's so beautiful. At this time, I'd like to invite Danny to come up as he has a special poem that he was going to read.
You can shed tears that he is gone, or you can smile because he lived. You can close your eyes and pray that he will come back, or you can open your eyes and see all that he has left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see him, or you can be full of love that you shared. You can turn your back on tomorrow and live yesterday, or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember him and only that he is gone, or you can cherish his memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn your back, or you can do what he would want, smile, open your eyes, love and go on.
Thank you, Danny. After we've heard so many amazing things about Mike today, I'm sure he would want us to smile, open our eyes, and go on to the best of our abilities. And before we go our separate ways today, as we celebrate the loving life of Mike, we will cherish those memories and his loving ways. May our farewell express affection for him. May it ease our sadness and strengthen our hope. May his memory always be a blessing and a comfort. At this time, we conclude the memorial service, and the family will now escort Mike in the Corvette to his final resting place. At this time, if the family could go ahead and make their way to the vehicles. Everyone else stay seated, please. As the family makes their way to Mike's final resting place after the internment, the family would like to request your presence at a reception at their home. And as you walked in on the signature book, there are some little invitations there with time and address as well. So at this time, as they make their way, we know that you will keep them in your prayers and in your heart. Go in the grace and peace of our Lord. This concludes our service. Amen.